Sterling K. Brown just received his 5th Emmy nomination, his 3rd in a row for This Is Us, where he plays Randall Pearson. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby, here with Sterling himself. So, first off, Sterling, you, Milo Ventimiglia, and Ron Cephas-Jones have now received nominations for all 3 seasons of This Is Us so far. Now, this year we had Mandy Moore and Chris Sullivan getting their first nominations. So, what was your reaction to hearing the news of your own nomination, but also the nomination for everyone else?
I was very grateful. And I say that because it never gets old. It's always sort of like a real joy to be invited to the party. But I really get giddy for my other castmates. Obviously, Milo and I both in lead actor categories with 2 separate storylines being recognized by the Academy is tremendous. And also Ron, he's my heart. I wish I got a chance to see and work with him more on a regular basis in the show, but I'm so happy that we have a chance to keep bringing him back on an annual basis. But for Mandy and for Chris, that was huge. I was so happy for my mama. I was so happy for my brother-in-law. And they were 2 of the first calls that I made. I heard early in the morning, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I was happy, but then I heard about Chris and Mandy, and I was overjoyed. And I called Sully, and he's like, what? He's like, are you kidding me? He's fixing a car up in Sacramento with his dad. He's like, and he starts cursing. I don't want to go. He's like, what the, everything. And just that sort of enthusiasm, because it never gets old. It's always exciting, but there's nothing like your first time. And to be able to share that with him and with Mandy was a real joy.
Yeah, and you are submitting the episode R&B at the Emmys as your best work of the season. It's the penultimate episode of season 3 where Randall and Beth are really going through a bit of a rough patch where Beth is unhappy with kind of how Randall's starting to be consumed by work and feeling like she can't really have a life of her own. So what was that experience like of really just going at it with Susan Kelechi Watson and going to such a dramatic place with her in that episode?
Yeah. First of all, let me say this. Susan is my heart. I love her as a human being, and I love working with her as a fellow thespian. We both went to grad school at NYU, where we received our Masters of Fine Arts. So we approached the work in a very similar way. There's a playfulness that both of us maintain. Even when things get serious, there's always a sense of play that is transpiring, which is my favorite sort of acting. And I will say this, you can put this in a parenthetical, as overjoyed as I was for Mandy and for Chris, I was as crestfallen for my dear partner in crime, because I think it could have gone her way. Big up, kudos to all my GOT ladies. I love bronze, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like anyone is undeserving. I'm just hopeful for the future that the Academy also gets a chance to recognize Sue. But that episode, man, because it wasn't just about the present day and the crux of where they found themselves and, who's supposed to give and who's supposed to take and who has given over the course of the relationship and who's taken. But it was just seeing the growth from their youth and how it sort of developed over time. And it got into this sort of place of Randall is a big personality, right? And he is by no means someone who's trying to override anyone else's dreams or whatnot, but he has no problems asserting himself. And you can see Beth took some time. Even in her episode, My Little Island Girl, with her mom, and her mom said, we're going to stop dancing now, she sort of took it on the chin and went on to the next thing. And so now you see this woman who's coming to her own, and she's like, no, this is what I want to do. I've been living with dreams deferred my whole life, and it's my turn. And so it's really nice to see the both of them reach this place where Randall said, you know what? this job means a lot. I've made a huge commitment, but I made a bigger commitment to the person that I'm supposed to share my life with. And if she's not happy, I can't be happy. And was willing to walk away. And then she found the door. Like, I really think it's a testimony to what marriage is. There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of growth. And if you're not careful, people can grow apart. And the goal is to try to grow together. Make sure that your interests are in line with your partners at all times. And I think that it was the most hashtag couples goals season for us because it was earned, right? Like, you got a chance to see more of the sunnier times in previous seasons, but then you got a chance to see them go through something, fight for it, and make it through to the other side. That's what marriage is, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking to that a little bit, what kind of fan response did you receive from everything Randall and Beth went through this season?
Oh, dude, it ran the gamut. I would say mostly people were hashtag Team Beth, right? Because they're like, I can't believe Randall left that voicemail. And I can't believe he told her not to go, like not to be a dance teacher and everything. I totally get it, because after you see what she went through, what she gave up, and how she sort of battled with her mom, you didn't want to see her husband put her in a similar sort of light. Then there were some people that were like Team Randall, and they're like, Beth's being selfish. He's a councilman now. She got to understand that he got to do this and that. I think the biggest one that made me happy, that showed the investment that people had in the relationship between Randall and Beth, when they were like, y'all need to work this out. They were like, I don't care who says I'm sorry to who, whatever you have to do in order to fix it, fix it. So when Deja told them, like, man, you done won the lottery twice. Like, I don't know what's going on between y'all, but you need to figure it out. People were like, preach, figure it out. I had people tell me, bro, they're like, if Randall and Beth break up, I'm done. Not watching the show. Like, my own wife, she said, look, if Lucius and Cookie can figure it out, Randall and Beth got to get their stuff together. So I think there was a real sense of relief at the end of the season when they saw that we were together and that we were together in the future. So sorry we had to put them through it, but, you know, it is what it is.
Definitely. Yeah, so this episode, it does have flashbacks to Randall and Beth when they were younger, when we see him repeatedly try to propose to Beth and they later get married. We see how they work on their vows together, and they do have their differences in certain moments, but it's certainly not as intense as what we're seeing in the present with what we're dealing with now. So was there anything about, you know, actually filming those scenes from Beth and Randall's past that actually added anything to how you play these characters kind of in the present?
You know, I can say this, like, the day in which we recreated our wedding, I came home and I told my wife, I said, Ryan, I have to tell you something. I said, it's not bad, but it's weird. And I have to be honest with you. And she goes, okay. I said, I think me and Susan got married today. And she's like, okay. Because the extra who was playing the Reverend was a Reverend in real life. You know, you say these vows to each other face to face. I deliberately kept my eyes closed and did not see her in her dress until like the first time we shot the vows, like in front of the Reverend, in front of all of the audience. And I was just overwhelmed. It was like I was getting married. We jumped a broom, which is, you know, an African-American tradition. Like in slave times, we weren't legally allowed to get married. So jumping the broom symbolized, you know, a new beginning, a new union. And Ryan and I, my wife and I, jumped the broom at our wedding. And it was just like, wow, this is really happening. So I think, like, having gone through that, and Sue and I both felt the same way, there was this investment, that sort of newness, that freshness, that hope and zeal of like starting a life together. And then fast forwarding 18 years or how many years later and seeing like where we are in our life now. well, more like 13, 14 years. I don't know. It made it real. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You always try to make it real as much as you can by going to your sense memory and remembering things from your own life, but having the opportunity to actually shoot the scene and live that moment made it all the more real in the present day.
Yeah, I can see that, definitely. And it's interesting how Randall made some choices in season 3 where he wasn't always in the right, and we in the audience may not have really been on his side in certain moments, as you're kind of saying. So how much work did you put into like still conveying Randall's truth and his perspective through everything he goes through, while also kind of now giving him a little more shades of gray?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think there's too many people who are truly just good or truly just bad. You know, we mostly live in shades of gray. And, you know, most of Randall's faults in season 1 and 2 are sort of illuminated in he tries too hard. He's a guy that tries so hard that it almost becomes self-debilitating. In season 3, he makes a commitment to doing something, to running for office. He wants to be of service. He wants to be of service in general, and he wants to be of service specifically to his community. I think his own struggles with identity and his Blackness, he found that through this job, he had an opportunity to really be of value to his community in a very direct way, and it's something that was important to him. And so even though he was losing the race and whatnot, he wanted to see it through to the end. He's the kind of guy that sees things through to the end. And when she asked him not to, he's like, I've come this far. I've invested this time. Even if I lose, just let me finish it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so then they went back and forth. It's like, I can't believe you told me if at any point in time, like I wasn't happy with how it was going, you said you would stop. So he reneged. That's the first renege that I can recall where Randall was just like, I know what I said, and I'm sorry, but you got to let me see this through to the end. And then ultimately he was going to stop. And then his wife was like, no, you are the guy who sees things through. And that's the man that I'm in love with. So see it through. And, you know, they wind up biting off more than he could chew. That commute is no joke. The toll that it takes on your time with your family, and especially with Beth finding something that gives her joy, that gives her purpose outside of being a mother. And I can relate. My wife is a wonderful actor, and she's also a wonderful mother. But if you took either one of those things away from her, there would be a void, you know? And so Beth finally fills this void. And then her husband says, look, you know, we have a daughter who is just now starting to figure out what her sexuality is. We have another daughter who's just now getting used to the routine of a regular family life, who's been in foster care for years. Is now the time for us to begin this new venture? Could we press pause, given the fact that you have to work nights and weekends, which is when our children kind of need a presence in the house? I understand his argument, right? And I didn't put any sort of like good or bad. I don't think he was being selfish. He was looking at the family as a whole and saying like, is this something that is going to serve us in total? She was like, bro, nobody asked you to stop doing what you was doing. Nobody said you ain't got to drive an hour and a half to 2 hours every day to work. You know what I'm saying? And so I get it. I get both sides of it. And the thing about it, you can't apologize. Like I tried to portray it in such a way that he wasn't apologizing for his choices. He said, look, you ultimately said I could finish doing this. You actually encouraged me to see it through when I was about to take a step back. We won. This is where we are. Given where we are right now, how do we add this on top of it? And I get what she's saying too. It's been years that she's been trying to find something that gave her a real sense of purpose. She lost her job. She tried to work on his campaign, like things she felt empty. And now she felt it. Like she felt overjoyed to have refound this passion that she had to put aside. And so you had people at an impasse. And this is what happens. Couples come to different impasses and you have to find the door, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that I think is most admirable about them both is that even though Beth said, she didn't see the door, she didn't stop trying. No, even though Randall had committed to doing this job, he still talked to J1. What happens if I decide not to do this? They were actively still working towards saving their union. And I think that's the best lesson that I even take away from it in terms of my own marriage. There are times in which people want to throw in the towel. For better or for worse, through sickness and health, till death do you part. Find the door. Find the door. And so, yeah, I think he's a fundamentally really solid human being. And we all have a tendency. Anytime, like, there would be things on social media where people be like, I can't believe Randall's being so selfish. Most human beings are selfish. Most of us. Most of us try to find things that allow us to feel a certain sense of joy and fulfillment in life, but also hopefully that spreads to the greater good as well. Not too many people are like, I'm going to allow myself to be shat on for year in and year out. Like that's antithetical to what it means to live, I think, right? There's very few people who do that. So like when folks would say that to me, I'd be like, or they wouldn't say it to me directly. They'd say it on social media. I was like, that's good. Like that's accurate. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that he's evil. It didn't mean that he didn't love his wife. It doesn't mean that he doesn't love his family. Just trying to find the best way to serve all constituents. That was long-winded, but you understand what I'm saying. That was great.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of sort of Emmy success, at least, you are about to be on the third season of a show that the Emmys love, which is The Marvelous Mrs Maisel.
Yeah,
I'm sure you aren't really allowed to tell me any specifics exactly of who you'll be playing on that, but, thinking about it, This Is Us has these moments of, like, contemplation and these quieter moments at times, whereas, like, an Amy Sherman-Palladino show is, like, rat-a-tat-tat, go, go, go. So, yeah. Was it a bit of an adjustment? I don't know if you've filmed yet, but was it an adjustment to kind of step into that world of Maisel for a little bit?
No, there's a definite adjustment. I would say that Maisel, for me, in terms of an hour-long single-camera format, is the closest thing to theater that I've ever experienced, right? Like I would say the medium that's closest to theater in film and television is the multi-camera sitcom, because there's no close-ups, it's a full-body sort of thing. You're in front of a live studio audience, and you sort of play to the room, right? But like Amy's shows are to be a drama, to be a single camera, are sort of theatrical as well. She does a lot of one-ers, so you have to know your lines. Her and Dan's scripts are like 85, 90 pages, and they still try to squeeze it into about 60 minutes. It's so much fun. And I have a theater background, so it's something that I always look to return to. It's almost like doing the show was like getting a chance to do theater without being on stage. It was great. Their cast is great. Rachel is ridiculously talented. Alex is the bomb. Their table reads are so much fun. Kevin Pollak at a table read is just the biggest ham, Shalhoub, everybody. Marin and I went to NYU together, so it was really nice to sort of be introduced to a new family, and they embraced me as such. It was lovely.
Can't wait for that. So as we sort of wrap up, is there any sort of broad teaser you could give for season 4 of This Is Us?
Broad. Let me see. The show continues to expand. Like the way in season 3, we sort of reached further back into the past of Jack's Vietnam experience. We do something not quite the same, but the world continues to get bigger. Randall and his family ultimately decide to move to Philadelphia. So there's going to be a lot of new things happening for them. I'm excited for Randall having a chance to be more directly involved with the Black community and what that means for him as a person growing up in a white family, in a white community. And because sometimes not all that glitters is gold. So there can be expectations that you have in your mind about what it will be like to finally to be a part. And sometimes you'll be received and sometimes you might be rejected. He's a very sensitive soul. So I'm curious to see how he responds in those moments. The girls, there's going to be a lot going on with the girls. Tess with her sexuality, Deja, just sort of finding her own routine in life. Hopefully Annie doesn't give us too many problems because she's just sweet and beautiful. But I think the newness of Philadelphia is going to add a really wonderful dynamic to the #Black Pearson household. Toby and Kate with the baby Jack. There's a lot coming up in terms of them being parents. I don't want to say too much about it, but it's good. It's really, really good. Kev, always sort of trying to find love. Whether or not he wants to be a father, we know that he has a child in the future, but like to see what his journey to that ultimately is, recognizing that Uncle Nicky becomes a part of their lives, seeing him in the future and how that sort of happens over time. So those are my broad teases. I could be more specific, but that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's plenty. Thank you so much, Sterling, and best of luck with the Emmys. Also, before we forget, to congratulate you on another Gold Derby Award nomination you just received from us. So,
thank you, Kev. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for the rest of you, please hit subscribe for more Emmy season interviews and head to goldderby.com to make your award show predictions.
Oh, peace, brother.